Hello and welcome to Building Successful Organizations with Nata. My name is Natalia Salcedo and I am an MBA student. In today's episode, we'll explore how organizations function through open and closed systems and how these systems shape organizational resilience, identity, and long term sustainability. I am joined today by two guests who bring valuable real world experience from different organizational perspectives. Kerry Cotter, Chief Financial and Operational Officer with over 15 years of experience, and in my other hand, Wesley Rich, Parts Manager with over 10 years of experience in the field. They will help us connect theory to practice through their insights and professional experiences. The goal of this podcast is to bridge theory and practice by examining how organizations adapt to change, maintain their identity, and achieve sustainability. So let's get started. Before we hear from our guests, and like a quick definition, we could say that an open system interacts with its external environment. It adapts, exchanges information, and evolves based on outside influences. Organizations like this tend to be flexible, and on the other hand, a closed system focuses on internal processes with limited interaction with external factors. This can provide stability but may limit innovation or adaptability. So we have talked about what open and closed systems are. Now let's get some real world perspectives for our guests. So to start, Carrie and Wesley, can you share how open or closed systems show up in your organization and what that looks like in a day-to-day operations?
Our organization is very open in terms of our day to day operations. We've always been a 100% remote company working across multiple states and multiple time zones. Also, our company has a very flat organizational structure, and our small to mid size calls for a lot of trust in our employees and established processes.
So at my company, Matt Morrison Company, we operate with a balance of open and closed systems. On the closed side, we rely on structured processes for inventory control, pricing, and recording parts to keep everything accurate. But we're also very much an open system since I work closely with our service team and suppliers every day. In practice, that means staying flexible, adjusting orders, responding to urgent jobs, and adapting to change coming from customers on the market.
Really interesting, and it really shows how theory plays out in real life. Thanks, Wesley and Kerry, for sharing that. Hearing both perspectives highlight how the type of system and organizations operates under can really influence its ability to adapt and respond to change. Now, I want us to talk about resilience. Organizational resilience is an organization's ability to adapt and recover in the face of challenges or unexpected change. Understanding resilience is crucial because it helps organizations survive disruptions and continue delivering value over the long term. So, can you share an example where your organization face of challenges?
We're a physician staffing company, and the COVID pandemic handcuffed us from providing steady and predictable on site services to our clients. And our financial statements really showed it after a couple of months. However, we didn't cut staff to save the bottom line. Instead, we initiated new services like telehealth, and the company executive leadership team, we reduced our pay temporarily so that we could keep our employees whole. We knew the pandemic wasn't going to last forever. And doing this really enhanced morale, and it later showed its return on investment post the pandemic.
So, one strong example of resiliency was during the supply chain disruption due to COVID. Many critical boiler parts were delayed or unavailable, and they directly impacted our service jobs. If we can't have the part, we can't go make money. We had to adapt quickly by sourcing alternative vendors, prioritizing urgent orders, and communicating closely with both customers and technicians. It was challenging, but it pushed us to become more proactive and better coordinated as a team.
Thank you so much. Hearing both of your perspectives really emphasize that resilience isn't just about surviving challenges, it also shapes the culture and identity of the organizations. And speaking of culture and identity, let's explore how these systems and resilience shape organizational identity and the way employees experience their roles and the organization as a whole. For me, organizational identity is one of the most interesting parts of understanding how companies work. It's all about the shared values, culture, and sense of belonging that define an organization. I personally think that the type of system, whether it's open or closed, really shapes how employees see themselves, how engaged they are, and even their moral day to day. I'm curious to hear how my guests have seen this play out in their organizations. And so, to start, Kerry, how do you think the openness or closed nature of your organization systems affect employee identity and values?
Our operational openness hinges on two main elements. The first is respect. I have respect for you as a person, as a value add to the organization and our company culture as a whole. The second element is trust. I trust you to respect me and your peers the way we respect you. And then I also trust you to do the job in which you were hired to do. And the company runs like a well-oiled machine as long as those two elements remain true.
And from your perspective, Wesley, how do you think working in a more open versus a more closed system affect employee motivation and identity?
I believe working in a more open system definitely increases motivation, and my role being connected to both the service team and customer needs makes the work feel meaningful because I can see the direct impact it has. Since we're a close knit team, communication flows easy, and that builds a strong sense of identity. A closed system helps with structure, but the openness is what keeps people engaged and invested.
It's a really interesting points of views, and also something related to what you just mentioned is shared vision. So let's explore how a shared vision for sustainability can unify organizations, strengthen resilience, and reinforce their identity. I personally believe that having a shared vision is one of the most powerful ways to unify an organization. When employees understand and buy into a common purpose, it not only strengthens resilience, but also reinforces organizational identity. So, Kerry, how can leaders create a shared vision that strengthens both resilience and identity within an organization?
We are able to create a shared vision by being transparent and providing timely communication and feedback. And again, it circles back to those main two elements of respect and trust. We provide timely and transparent communication at least once a quarter in a quarterly town hall where everyone in the company spends an hour online on an online virtual meeting, and we go over the financials for that quarter. We go over any roadmaps on initiatives that we're currently working on. We will highlight any major organizational changes. And then we always make sure we leave ample time for questions or comments.
Leaders can create a strong shared vision by connecting daily tasks to the bigger picture. In our company, that means understanding that having the right parts ready on time directly affects job success and customer satisfaction. When leadership communicates that clearly and keeps the team aligned, it builds trust, strengthens identity, and helps everyone stay resilient during challenges.
Now, let's connect our discussion to some theoretical perspectives. There are several ways to look at organizational identity, but today we will focus on three: functionalist, interpretivist, and critical perspectives. From a functionalist perspective, organizations are seen as a structured system designed to achieve goals efficiently. The interpretivist perspective emphasizes meaning, culture, and the shared experiences of employees. It's about how people understand their organization and create identity collectively. Finally, the critical perspective looks at power, inequality, and how identity can be influenced or constrained by organizational hierarchies and structures. So I came across a really interesting study by Hall and other authors in 2016, and they found that the most resilient organizations aren't the ones where identities are fixed. Instead, resilience comes from flexibility when organizational identity is dynamic and can adapt. In other words, having multiple flexible identities helps teams coordinate quickly, make better decisions, and adapt when uncertainty hits. So, Carrie, based on your experience, do you see elements of these perspectives, functionalist, interpretivist, or critical, playing out in your organization?
I see all three elements playing out in our organization from time to time. While our overall mission invites our employees to have a shared purpose and high trust culture, our day to day, we really operate with established roles, rules, and processes. And, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, there is always a critical element um, in in our organization. A perfect example of this is, I'm the CFO, COO, and I may not necessarily agree with my CEO, the board of directors, other leaders of departments. And at the end of the day, our hierarchy, there is, the buck stops here on certain things. And the roles and rules define where that hierarchy goes and who's the ultimate decision maker. So I wouldn't say it's inequality, but there is a hierarchy for decision making, and that also aids with the efficiency of the operations.
And Wesley, from your perspective, which of these lenses best describes your organization and why?
So, from my perspective, our organization is mainly functionalist because we rely on efficiency, clear roles, and structured processes to keep operations running smoothly. At the same time, there's an interpretivist side, especially because we're a close knit team and communication plays a big role in how we solve problems. But overall, performance and reliability are the main focus.
Thank you. Hearing both of your insights shows that theory is reflected in everyday organizational life. By connecting theory, research, and real world experience, we get a fuller picture of how systems, identity, and shared vision come together to build a successful organizations. Today, we have explored how organizations operate as open or closed systems, how these systems influence resilience, and how they shape organizational identity. We also discussed with the importance of a shared vision for our sustainability and how theory helps us make sense of these real world experiences. I want to sincerely thank my guests, Carrie and Wesley, for sharing their experiences and insights. And personally, this conversation reminded me that theory and practice go hand in hand. By understanding systems, resilience, identity, help organizations not just survive, but truly succeed. Thank you all for listening to us building successful organizations with Nata. Until next time, bye.